You're listening to episode 76 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On today's show, I thought it would be fun to hear from three fellow dietitians and podcast friends about how they are navigating the day-to-day grocery shopping and cooking during quarantine or stay at home or whatever you're calling it. Now, I will tell you that my shopping and cooking habits have changed. I've become a lot more organized about meal planning. And you know, I'm not very organized typically. And I am cooking a lot. In my house, it's like back to the future because Simon is home. He is back in our midst. He's eating us out of house and home. And, you know, he came home from college in March. His appetite has been going strong ever since. I will say he does help me cook dinner from time to time, and I've talked about that on the podcast. And it is really lovely having him home to do dish duty every night. I do appreciate that because I have this, motto that if I do the cooking, I am not doing the cleaning. And I think that's really important. Otherwise, I would literally never leave my kitchen. So anyway, I'm sort of curious how you guys are doing, how your shopping habits have changed, how your eating habits have changed. You know, over on the show notes, you can always post a comment or on social media. I would just love to hear from you. I'm just curious how things are going with you guys. I would imagine you need a little bit of inspiration. We all do right now. So I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode on kitchen conversations during quarantine. And this week I decided to have three guests on the show just to get some different perspectives. So let me tell you about my three guests. First up, we have Amber Pankonin, who hails from the great state of Nebraska. Amber hosts the Healthy Under Pressure podcast, where she interviews entrepreneurs about how they thrive and grow, even when they're faced with daily stresses and challenges. Now, Amber has some really important words of wisdom for all of us on giving ourselves a break during difficult times. And not feeling like we have to be Wonder Woman or Superman right now. Just give yourself a break, give yourself some grace. And she reminds all of us that we don't have to play the comparison game. And I do appreciate that. Thank you, Amber, because I, for one, am not making sourdough bread, and I am no longer feeling guilty about it. Next up is David Orozco. He is a dietitian, get it? A guy dietitian. He is the host of the One Small Bite podcast, where he addresses nutrition topics for men. So hint, hint, be sure to tell all the men in your life all about David's show. He joins us from Georgia with survival stories from his home kitchen, where every night with his wife and his daughter, they plan dinners, and they plan them so they do double duty as lunch the next day. So no PB&J for this dietitian. And my third guest is Melissa Joy Dobbins from Illinois. Now, Melissa is the host of the Soundbites podcast, and I will say she has a magical way of taking the latest science on nutrition and translating it into essential news that we can all use. She's got a great podcast, and I hope you'll all tune into that. So she's home with her husband and her two kids right now, and right now she is craving variety. She's kind of getting bored with the same old, same old. So the pandemic has really brought out the chef in Melissa. And so she's been exploring new mealtime creations, and I'm sure she'll have some new ideas for you guys. Before we get started, a friendly reminder, if you love the show, tell a friend about it. Post a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to join the Liz's Podcast Posse over on Facebook, so you're always the first to know what we've got cooking on the blog, the podcast, and beyond. And if you haven't signed up yet for my Color Cook Learn 26-day challenge, check it out at lizshealthytable.com under the cookbooks and freebies page. It is a coloring challenge. It is a cooking challenge, and hopefully it will inspire everybody to get into the kitchen with their kiddos. All right, everybody, grab your cup of coffee, sit down and relax, and enjoy today's Kitchen Conversations podcast. Hey, Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your podcast?
Sure. So I am Amber Pankonin. I'm a registered dietitian located in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm a culinary student, and my podcast is called Healthy Under Pressure. So I speak with entrepreneurs and very busy people about how they stay healthy under pressure.
Well, right now, the entire world is under pressure. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, our lives have just been turned upside down, and people are experiencing a lot of stress. So how do we stay healthy during this stressful time? Can you give us some lessons, some insights on how to do that?
Our motto around here is that taking care of business starts by taking care of yourself. So taking time for self-care, I think, is really important right now. And also not playing the comparison game because, Liz, I'm sure you've noticed this too. There's just a lot of, those pressures that we're seeing online right now in terms of having to maybe cook, a certain way or, making sure your kids are being educated and setting up that perfect homeschool classroom. There's so much pressure right now. And so, just encouraging people that self-care right now might look a little bit different than it did 6 weeks ago, and to give yourself some grace in that.
It is interesting you mentioned this online pressure, and the pressure I see for me personally is I feel like I should be baking bread or having a sourdough starter. And I'm so happy when I see my friends doing this online and my colleagues, but I kind of in the back of my mind think, Liz, you should be doing that. So what you're saying, Amber, is give yourself a break. Forget it. You can't do it all.
Right, exactly. And Liz, I have felt the exact same way. I know people are looking to me to, see these recipes or see what my bread looks like. And I'm not really focusing on that. I am still a student right now. I'm in culinary school. So I'm spending quite a bit of time on my classes and, trying to do my client work as well. And you only have so much time in a day. And so, giving yourself some grace to, get the things done that you need to get done just to maintain your mental health.
Mm-hmm. So what are you doing differently? I mean, you are in culinary school, which is so cool, having that dietitian culinary connection. I went to culinary school as well. So I'm saying personally, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do. And I know your husband probably appreciates all your experiments at home. But since this kind of, stay-at-home thing has taken root, have you and your husband, have you changed your cooking habits, eating habits, shopping habits? What's changed? Anything?
I would say really shopping habits have probably changed the most. I think I'm much more intentional about menu planning and shopping, and especially focusing on food waste, which, I, of course, was concerned about food waste before, but I've been much more aware of it now because I want to make sure that, I'm using all of the leftovers that I have, or, now I can fabricate my own chicken, which is pretty cool. So, being able to use all the pieces in your poultry, those things I think have been really, really helpful. I would say from a school and more of a fun perspective is that I've been trying a lot of things that we've been encouraged to make at home in our classes. So omelets actually are one thing that we've been experimenting a lot with here. So I don't know if you remember this, Liz, but the French style omelet versus the American versus the souffle, we've been having a lot of fun experimenting with those.
And of course, omelets are the perfect vehicle for getting more vegetables into your diet because you can add just about anything, saute up some veggies and pop those in.
Oh my goodness. And right, it's a great way to reduce food waste. So I've been using, like you said, some vegetables, especially kale, that might be kind of on the edge there, whether you don't know if you should throw it away or not, cook it in a saute pan, before you add those eggs. That's a great way to utilize up some of those fruits and vegetables.
I'm going to make an asparagus quiche tonight for dinner.
Ooh, that sounds super good.
Yeah.
What will go in your quiche?
Eggs and cheese and asparagus and some herbs. And you know what I've been doing, which has really been kind of fun since I've been home more and I've had a little more time. I've been going back into my old cookbooks. So the Mom's Guide from Meal Makeovers and No Wine with Dinner. And I'm resurrecting old recipes. And then I'm also going back into my blog to previous recipes. And so sometimes it's fun just to go back and visit recipes you haven't made in years because you have a little more time to sit and think and plan. And I know you and I were talking earlier and you said you are meal planning a little bit more than you used to, right? That part of that being intentional.
Yes, definitely. Well, and just making sure that I am utilizing every single trip outside of the house. So when I do go to the grocery store, it has to be worth it. I want to make sure that I'm not making multiple trips like I normally would do. If I was working on a recipe or a project for a client, I might go to the store 3 or 4 times. And now I just don't have that luxury. So making sure that I'm really laser focused on, planning ahead of time before I go. And, one other thing that we've been making is gnocchi. I don't know if you've made gnocchi before, but that was an assignment in one of my classes. So it's basically a dumpling with potatoes and flour and egg yolks. So another great way to maybe utilize, some of those potatoes you have laying around or eggs. And it's super economical, really easy to make, and very filling.
Interesting, because I have some store-bought gnocchi, and I'm planning to make that. And I haven't decided yet what I'm going to add with it or to it. But again, gnocchi is like an omelet, in terms of you can add lots of veggies to it. It's not just like, here's your gnocchi, right? You can really round it out.
You sure can. And the sauce that goes with that, can be super simple. I mean, one example that I saw was basically a butter sauce with sage and a little bit of salt. So even a very simple sauce like that, or, you could do a tomato-based sauce on that too. I mean, really sky's the limit when it comes to gnocchi.
Well, I have some Googling to do because I've got the time. I'm home. And I was saying to Amber earlier, I said, I hope my computer doesn't die on me. I mean, it's bad enough that I'm paranoid about my dishwasher going, but this computer better last because I am on it. Between the dishwasher and the computer, those are my two kind of appliances, if you will, that I am like on 24/7.
I understand.
Yeah. Did you mention earlier that you're in Nebraska? Did you tell everybody that?
I am. Lincoln, Nebraska, right in the middle of it all.
You're smack dab in the middle of the country.
That's right.
Are you friends with Warren Buffett?
He doesn't live too far, actually. He's in Omaha, which is about an hour away from where I live. But, one of the really cool things about being in Nebraska is that we have access to great animal agriculture and animal products here. So Nebraska beef, our poultry, our pork is amazing. And I would say that's another thing that has shifted for us within the last couple of years is that direct farm to consumer sales. So, I have, friends that produce cattle and I'm able to order directly from them if I want beef or if I want chicken. And so we're really not seeing a lot of the food shortages here in the Midwest, like I think some other states are seeing. So again, I'm just super thankful to have those connections and be able to enjoy some great animal agriculture here in Nebraska.
And, it is a challenge for the farmers nowadays because their supply chain, I talked about this on my show last week, the supply chain was either to supermarkets, retail, or to food service like schools and restaurants, hospitals. Well, hospitals are still busy, sadly. But, when you're a farmer and you normally supply schools, restaurants, food service, like all of a sudden it's all disrupted. So I love how you're able to interact and source directly from those farms. I think that's really important, especially because I know you're so mindful of food waste and that's something I'm passionate about, reducing food waste.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm just super thankful to have friends who are in the industry, who are aware of that and who truly care about their land. They care about the animals, and they want to make sure that their farms are sustainable. And so they truly are essential right now, Liz, when you think about, we need food. And so, the fact that they're out there too, they're continuing to, we're in planting season right now. And so they're working extremely hard right now just to make sure that the crops are planted and that they're not experiencing the food waste like we're seeing maybe in other parts of the country.
Yeah, so many shifts, so many changes. And I hope we can all kind of get back to normal sooner than later. But I'm going to do my part and stay home and keep it safe. That's all we can do right now.
That's right.
Hey, Amber, thanks for joining me. And maybe we'll get you back on the show in the coming months. I've always loved your show. I've been on your show, and it's about high time you were on my show. So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Liz. It was fun to be here.
Hey, David, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting.
It is. I'm at my home office. You're at your home office. And just to continue on with our kitchen conversations, I was hoping you could just start out by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, your family, your podcast.
Thank you. That's really, really nice. I do appreciate that. Yes, I'm David Orozco. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I've had a private practice in a suburb of Atlanta now for approximately 14 years. And I also have a podcast called One Small Bite. It specializes in nutrition and health topics for men, and had that for a few months now, and it's been going great. I love it. I love being on podcasts and doing the show.
So it's more for men, and I feel like guys don't get enough attention when it comes to nutrition, right? I'm glad you're doing the show.
Yeah, it is one of those things, and I think I've mentioned this to several people before. 60 to 70% of my clients are female. And one of the challenges is that men just don't make appointments, not just with their doctors, but with us dietitians as well. So I thought it was a great opportunity. It was a great way to reach out to some of my guys and men that, will listen to podcasts and hopefully get them in the door.
Yeah, good stuff. And you've got an 8-year-old as well. You have a daughter, right?
I do. Helena, she is my little dream. She is the little mini me in the family, and she keeps us busy. It's a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of fun things being home quarantined these days.
Yeah. And I will say, before I ask you about sort of how your food style has changed over the last few weeks, but this just popped into my head, and tell me how I should have handled this, David. But the other day I was upstairs working in the dining room. Simon was probably upstairs studying, or maybe off not studying, but Tim is in the basement working. And I get this text message. It must have been about 1:00. And Tim texted me, "What's for lunch?" I was like, "You are able to come up and open the refrigerator and see." Could you believe that? What's for lunch? He's texting me from downstairs. What should I have done?
He's not 8 years old either.
No, he's not. He's become way too dependent on me. I don't like where things are going around here. What are your shopping habits like now? What are your eating habits, your cooking habits? How have things changed for you guys? Like, let's talk about shopping, grocery shopping. How are you handling that?
We are still going to the grocery store. So once a week, we are still going to the grocery store. That really actually hasn't changed. We've always had that habit of going to the grocery store before the social distancing or stay-at-home orders. The difference now is that only one of us goes, and we're, of course, wearing masks, we're wearing gloves, and we do a little bit of cleaning down before we go, and then a little bit of cleaning down once we come back.
I noticed the other day I went to Whole Foods, and their seafood counter was just shut down, and it was because they didn't have enough employees. So I ended up buying frozen, and I prefer fresh, but that was fine. I bought frozen. And, for me, as I shared earlier, I love to shop multiple times in the week. And now I'm just doing the once a week, like the mega big shop. But it sounds like you guys were doing that all along anyway, right? You were just doing the one big shop and getting you through the whole week.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I've talked about actually in my podcast. And I've done an Instagram post, a couple of them actually. One of the big challenges that I see is that a lot of people are frazzled. They don't know how to create a schedule or routine or around, working from home. And of course, that's because they were never working from home, or they don't have all the same schedules. For us, we've always done a good job of sticking to mostly of a schedule. I think the biggest difference right now is obviously we're having breakfast and we're having lunch, all of us here at home, whereas before we would, maybe eating out or grabbing lunch with colleagues and coworkers or bringing our lunch to work. But other than that, we try to keep to the same schedule. We've always had dinner together. That's never, ever changed. I think there's maybe only once a week where we don't, but that hasn't really changed. The biggest change I think that I've seen the most is the dishwasher running nonstop. I think that's been the biggest deal, but we've been very fortunate. And again, that's one of the things that I try to tell clients is, look, try to fix a routine. Think about your 3 meals and set your routine around those 3 meals. It's a great way to create that structure. And this way we try to not overeat foods. And it's worked really well.
You and I checked in about a week or so ago, and you told me that one of the biggest changes in your household is that you're making dinners, not just for dinner, but you're thinking about dinner for lunch the next day. So you're repurposing leftovers the next day. And I love that advice because we're all making family dinners pretty much every night now. So make enough that you have it for lunch the next day, right? You're not packing school lunches. You're not going out to eat. You're home. So give me 1 or 2 of your favorite, the David Special, 1 or 2 of your favorite dinners that you're repurposing for lunch. I know one of them was a pork dish, some sort of, Cuban sandwich creation you made. So tell me about that pork dish to start.
Yeah, that was a great dish. I chopped up some garlic and put that tenderloin in a Ziploc bag. I added olive oil and balsamic vinegar, salt and pepper, and then I just mixed it up inside the Ziploc. And then I roasted that on the grill. I grilled that, and we had it at night for dinner. We had it with some broccoli, and we had it with some pasta. And then the next morning, we had some leftovers. So we did a delicious Cuban sandwich. Oh, it was fantastic. We did that on a brioche bun with Munster cheese, mustard, and some pickles. And it was fantastic. It reminded me when I was a little kid, used to have those Cuban sandwiches all the time. And we had a little George Foreman grill. We smashed them up and had them for lunch the next day. And my daughter had lots of mms and yums. So that's what made it great. And we also did a Buddha bowl. So I make a tofu stir fry, usually about once a week. And we had some extra. And so what I did is I just took that extra with that tofu stir fry, had a whole bunch of veggies in it, had tofu. It had a peanut sauce that I make from scratch. And then I put that on a bed of microgreens, and we added a farro rice to it. And it was just fantastic. It was just like one of those Buddha bowls that you get at one of those restaurants.
That sounds really good. I actually made a stir fry last night with a peanut sauce, and I used some light coconut milk, peanut butter, soy sauce, ginger, and garlic. And gosh, there was one other ingredient, which I now cannot remember, but I mixed that all up and, a little cornstarch. And then I added that in with the tofu and the vegetables, and it was so good. So I think, smart minds think alike here.
Yeah. And the thing I like about tofu, it's the chameleon of food. It'll take on the flavor that you put together. So it's a really delicious protein source. And
you also told me that sometimes you'll do pizza for dinner, and then you'll have that for lunch the next day. I know some people also do that for breakfast, right?
Right. Well, my wife loves pizza, cold pizza for breakfast, but we did a handmade pizza. And something that my daughter and I love doing is we'll actually make pizza. And what she does is I'll give her a couple pieces of dough, and she'll make little hearts. And so we make pizza, and then the next morning we'll either do a pizza breakfast or we'll do pizza for lunch. And so with the pizza for lunch, is we'll do a side of veggies or a sort of a deconstructed salad, which is essentially tomatoes and celery and cucumbers and carrots. And then we'll have the pizza, and then on the side we'll also do maybe a fruit. So it's a great little combination, just so easy to do, and kids really just love putting it together, especially when she could make a heart out of her pizza.
That's cute. So the lesson learned for me, because I am this person who's constantly grocery shopping, and now I cannot do that anymore. My biggest challenge has been that meal planning, and I make it very public. I'm not a meal planner. I'm not great at it, although I've got all the tools on my website to help other people do it. I fly by the seat of my pants. So the lesson I'm going to take from you, David, is to be much more mindful of dinner and making more for dinner, so that when Tim sends me a text message in the middle of the afternoon and wants to know what's for dinner, or rather what's for lunch, because he's in the basement and I'm upstairs, what's for lunch, I'm going to say, go have the leftovers out of the fridge from last night. So thank you for that lesson. Before we sign off, you mentioned those Cuban sandwiches, which really did sound so good. Are you originally from Cuba, or is your family originally from Cuba?
That's a good question. I'm originally from Colombia. I was born in Colombia. My parents moved to the States when I was 3 years old. So I've been living in the United States for 5 years.
For how many years?
years. No, I'm kidding. I'm 50 years old. So I've been living here for 47 years. But I grew up in New Jersey, and there was a huge Cuban population in New Jersey. So I love Cuban food. I grew up with Cuban food, Cuban sandwiches, picadillo, chicken and yellow rice, yuca fries, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, when I made those Cuban sandwiches, they were just fantastic. It just brought me back to my youth. But I've been living in Atlanta now for 30 years. So there's a bit of Southern in me now, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, y'all, for coming on the show.
That's right. Thank you.
I lived in Atlanta, too, so I will say that the Atlanta or the Southern accent has really not rubbed off on you, just because I'm not hearing it. I am not hearing it.
No, I haven't. I haven't really established that at all.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of dear friends in Atlanta, and I'm going to add you to my list of friends. So hopefully I'll be able to get back down there sometime soon and
absolutely
and visit with everybody. Let's hope for the best. Well, thanks for coming on the show and sharing some of your kitchen wisdom with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Liz.
Melissa, thanks for stopping by the podcast.
Hey, Liz, how are you?
I'm good. I can't believe I haven't had you on my show. Like, why?
I haven't been on your show? I guess I haven't.
Maybe, I don't know. Were you on Cooking with the Moms, the old podcast from back in the day? Oh,
no.
Gosh.
But you guys were on my show.
We were. I think we were on one of your first shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I haven't paid it forward. It's only taken me till a pandemic to get you onto the podcast.
Well, you paid it forward because you guys helped, both you and Janice helped me get my podcast up and running. So thank you.
And that's Janice Bissix. And we were together with Meal Makeover Moms back in the day, and a show called Cooking with the Moms. For those of you who did not listen to my show back then, some of you have been longtime listeners. So thank you for that. But anyway, Melissa stopped by because, we're having this sort of Corona kitchen conversation thing going on the podcast today, just kind of figuring out how our lives have changed in our kitchens and our cooking style and shopping and everything else. So we're going to talk about that. But Melissa, I do want you to introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about your podcast, your family, what you do.
Oh, sure. So Melissa Joy Dobbins. I'm the guilt-free RD because food should not make you feel bad. And my nutrition communications business is called Sound Bites. And I promote sound science, smart nutrition, and good food. And that's also the name of my podcast, Sound Bites, where I like to delve into the science, the psychology, and the strategies behind good food and nutrition. And I interview a variety of guests on a variety of topics ranging from fad diets to farming. So people can check that out if they're interested in a variety of topics. I'm not culinary like Liz, but I do have what I call my Do More with Dinner initiative. It's been around for a while. I haven't really talked about it much recently, but it was basically a way for me to maybe learn more kitchen skills or get my kids in the kitchen or spend less time in the kitchen and more time with family conversations. So I have a free resource that I can share with your listeners as well.
So we'll put that in the show notes. I will link to your podcast and then send me that link and I'll make sure we get that in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah. And my family, I have, my son just turned 12. My daughter is a sophomore in college. My husband is my husband. I don't know. Like, I don't want to
that sounds good to me.
Anything. Yeah. So
my husband's my husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's my Mr. Fix-It. He fixes everything around here. And yeah, we've been spending a lot of quality family time together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so have we. And, obviously everybody's shopping, cooking, eating habits, styles, whatever, are changing since we're all, not all of us, but most of us are now at home a lot. So tell us, how long have you guys been sort of on stay-at-home? I don't know if you're on stay-at-home orders or a recommendation. We're more like a quote-unquote recommendation, but we're all home. But how long have you been at home? And then have your eating habits and your shopping habits changed?
Yes. So we started social distancing around March 12th. And then about a week later, we were ordered shelter in place. So it's been quite a while. And yes, things have changed. Liz, you and I were joking earlier. I feel sort of like, I like structure and a routine, but I also like some flexibility and variety. And I started feeling like it was kind of that movie Groundhog Day. I'd wake up and I'd say, what day is it today? Because for me, working from home already, not a lot has changed for my own routine, except for, I don't go out to karate on Tuesday morning. I don't go out to ballet on Thursday morning. Thank goodness now those are on Zoom. But for the first few weeks, it was sort of like, I don't know what day it is. And my family all here. When you work from home, sometimes you're like, can everybody just go and leave me alone? But everybody's been pretty good. We have enough room and space to kind of stay out of each other's way while we're all doing our e-learning or our real work. Not that e-learning's not real work, but I would say, like, with regard to shopping, not a lot has changed. Obviously, we're going much less often. But I think we're buying pretty much the same stuff. I always have, like a stocked freezer and a stocked pantry. And, like I said, we're just trying to go less often. My husband does do the Costco run. We have some elderly relatives that we're also shopping for when they can't get delivery. But I want to do the delivery. I really don't want my husband to keep going out to the store, and we kind of are weighing the pros and cons on that. But I will say one of the different things that we do have a little bit more junk food on hand, which normally I don't keep a lot of that at home, especially like M&Ms or chips or things like that, because, if it's at home, it's there, it's easy to eat it. But now that, you can't just go out and get it whenever you want, we do have more of that. But I wouldn't say that we're like eating a lot more of those foods. It's just kind of nice to know that they're there if we need something. But the cooking has changed a lot, and our eating habits in general. Instead of trying to get to the dinner table more often, we're basically eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together almost all the time, which is nice. But my husband is making bread, which is something he loves to do.
Really? Oh, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and he hasn't done it in a long time, but I don't know why the coronavirus thing, everybody wanted to make their own bread. We had to order yeast on Amazon. We couldn't get it at the store. So I'm not sure what the connection is there, like bread, coronavirus, toilet paper. I don't know.
Well, maybe we have more time, maybe because people can nurture and kind of babysit the bread. Maybe that's what it is. Or I don't know, people need a project.
I don't know. I personally haven't had any of that extra time that people are talking about. We've been pretty busy around here, but maybe. I mean, he enjoys doing that. We did make, so we've had a couple birthdays around here. So we've been making birthday cakes from scratch instead of, going to the store and picking one up, which, I mean, we've done that in the past, but for sure we were like, okay, is that an essential trip? I don't know. But so we did that. And then this isn't really cooking, but it is kind of funny. It dawned on me the day before Easter that I didn't have any Easter candy. So I always use the same baskets and grass and eggs and everything. And my kids are old enough to, they don't believe in the Easter bunny anymore. But I was just determined to still do the Easter baskets. So I raided the kids' old Halloween and Christmas candy and built their Easter baskets with that. So it was kind of funny because there's like chocolate Santas and candy corn and things like that. So, got to get creative, use that stuff up.
You do. And I did see your post of this Santa sticking out of the Easter basket. And I thought that is hilarious.
It's a little silly, but I wanted to still have the same traditions.
It's comforting, right? I think people do want, maybe that's the bread thing. Maybe it is comforting. Maybe, I've been making chicken soup more because I'm not, like for Passover, I couldn't go to Connecticut to my mom's and she makes the best chicken soup with matzo balls. I just went and made Joan Nathan's, she's sort of classic Joan Nathan's chicken soup. It was so good. The house smelled so great and it's true comfort food. So I think that's the bread thing, I think.
I think that's it. I agree. That makes a lot of sense.
So Melissa, what about dinner? What are you making for dinner?
Yeah, that has changed a lot. In the past, I mentioned my Do More with Dinner initiative. Like for me, it was about keeping it as simple as possible, just that plate that has either, a grilled chicken breast or a piece of fish or a lean piece of pork or steak and a vegetable and like a whole grain rice or potatoes or something.
So traditional, right?
Yeah, that just keep it simple. Now I want variety. I want something different every day. It doesn't have to be fancy, but sort of like, maybe more along the lines of comfort food. We've been making Instant Pot mac and cheese. I got a great recipe from our dietitian colleague, Marissa Moore, and that's been fun and easy. Or like breakfast for dinner. My husband will do eggs. Or like with regards, this isn't a dinner thing, but with regards to varieties, like sometimes I'll do popcorn in the middle of the day, just something just to shake it up a bit. But I do want to give a shout out to another dietitian colleague of us. I've been using her new book, Shelley Rail, The One Pot Weight Loss Plan, Healthy Meals for Your Slow Cooker, Skillet, Sheet Pan, and More. I love the whole one pot idea. We did like the stacked enchilada casserole, which is in the slow cooker. She also has an Instant Pot mac and cheese and an Instant Pot mushroom risotto. So instead of in the past, I'd cook once, eat twice, like we would have leftovers for dinner quite a bit. And now, my daughter's back from college, so we have fewer leftovers. Like that is lunch fare. Dinner has got to be something different every night.
So it sounds like you're really loving the variety because of the Groundhog Day movie that is your life right now. You don't want to wake up every day and say, oh, we have to have the same dinner again. You're just adding a lot of variety. And I really like that.
Yeah, I'm really craving that variety. That became apparent very quickly. And I think because a lot of times we would go out to dinner for that variety. Like when I go out to eat, a lot of times I'll order fish that I don't prepare as often at home, or a salad with like a lot of different ingredients that I may not have at home. And yeah, I just really am craving that variety. And we have, speaking of restaurants though, we have ordered takeout a few times, and that has been just a huge treat. We ordered food for Easter, and for my husband's birthday, we've done steaks and pizza, and that was just, we're all so excited about it.
Hey, anything else, any other little words of wisdom you want to give us before we let you go?
I guess along the lines of my Do More with Dinner is just find out what works for you. For me, I was surprised that variety was important. If making bread makes you happy, if ordering takeout makes you happy, just, take care of yourself and do what makes you feel good.
Thanks, Melissa.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. I hope you learned something new and got inspired. You can check out the show notes from today's show for links to Melissa, David, and Amber. Definitely want to check out their podcasts. I'll give you links to their shows and their websites, their social media, and the recipes and resources we discussed on today's podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.